Hi everybody, I'm Blue Nagoon, and today I'm going to talk about how I made my song, The Pull of the Stars. It's a very pure synthwave outrun style track, and it features a beautiful melancholic vocal by Christina Pollock. So when I write lyrics, I try to write from the perspective of a character. Oftentimes there's a lot of me in that character. Sometimes it's almost 100% me. Sometimes it's hardly any of me. It varies. In this case, I imagine my main character as a middle-aged woman standing on the balcony of her estate. It's crumbling. She's remembering a better time when she was younger, richer, more powerful, and holding on to some memories from that time to try to get her through this current time when everything is kind of going to crap. Gee, I wonder what event happened in 2020 that could possibly inspire a story like that. And of course, the mental images I had were heavily inspired by anytime pop music gets a little theatrical and goth. So think of like symphonic metal band videos for Jim Steinman songs, the band Ghost. Also at this time, during the whole lockdown and everything, the new World of Warcraft expansion came out, and I was playing that, and it had a zone that was all about fated aristocracy and gargoyles and that kind of thing. And so from all of that soup came this main character, this mood, and the lyrics of the song. All right, the chord progressions in this song are pretty straightforward. Intro, verse, and chorus all use the 6-2-5-3 progression. I ripped off the first two chords of this progression from an old Pet Shop Boys song that I dearly love. I just like how when you go minor, minor right off the bat, it sets a nice tone, and it's kind of like, are we in a major key or minor key? The pre-chorus is just a slight variation on that with a 4-chord in there, and the Coda is just rearranging those chords again. The 3-chord here at the end of each chord sequence is usually minor, again, because I want that sad sound. But then at the transitions going back into the C sharp minor, especially pre-chorus into chorus, I often made it major to get the pull of the dominant 7th going through there. So the song started, as many of my songs do, as a little 8-bar loop in the DAW, and that sounded like this. So a lot of the final elements in the song are already there in the original 8-bar loop as far as tempo and chords and mood and that kind of thing. I like to step away from the DAW to write most of the song. I feel like it helps me make a more cohesive song. And I have no illusions left. Once I had the song mostly written, I came back to the DAW and arranged it and sent it to the singer I was hoping to work with, and we connected and recorded it. Okay, so drums. Of course, I'm using standard synthwave style drums, which means 80s drum machine samples for the most part. My kick is a 707 sample. I have some tape saturation on it, drum bus on it to give it a little more boom and drive, and then EQ to cut off some of the high end. My snare sound is 3 sounds stacked on top of each other. The first one here is I think it's a 707, but it's a standard sort of high drum machine snare sound. Got some decapitator on it for saturation, EQ to accentuate the fundamental and bring down a little bit of the mids, not a ton though. It's a pretty perfect sound to start with, honestly. Vintage verb to give it some gated reverb, and Soothe 2 to remove some of the annoying resonances. Then my second layer is a low snare that's from a Simmons. EQ on it, again, just accentuate the fundamental, cut off a little bit of the decaying low end here. Don't need too much of that. And then the final sound in the stack is white noise. It's not pure white noise. It sounds like it's a sample, like a 909 or something. But basically, it's in there for the white noise. I'm cutting everything else off. Add a little reverb on it, like everything else. And if you put all three together, you get that. So all the drums together. All right, my bass is split into 2 tracks. One is the low part of the bass, and one is the mid-range and upper part of the bass. So the low part just sounds like this. Pretty straightforward. It's just a arpeggiated pluck kind of bass in Diva, but you'll notice the EQ is accentuating the low end and just cutting everything else off. Compressor here to even things out, and then a sidechain compressor on the kick. Meanwhile, the upper part of the bass has some tape saturation on it, some sidechain compression to the kick, of course. The EQ here is rolling everything off that's down here where the low bass would take over. Together, the basses sound like this. All right, here's the key sound dry. It's a sample from a Roland Juno 6, and it's got Sketch Cassette on it to make it very lo-fi sounding. Sketch Cassette just leans into that whole old 4-track kind of sound, so it's got saturation, wow and flutter, some dropouts, that sort of thing. I have an EQ on here to cut off the bass and to do a little notch where the bass growl comes through. CQ for high end, auto pan to give it a little bit of movement left and right, and then track spacer set at a very low ratio for the vocals, and reverb. All right, in the verse I have this nice big fat pad underneath everything else. It's sampled from a Ensoniq VFX early 90s synthesizer. I put microshift on it to give it more width. Multipine dynamics, compressing the low mids, this section here. Halfway through the verse, this soft keys line comes in. It's a Prophet 5 synthesizer. It's got some EQ on it, some chorus, and some microshift to give it some width and body, and then lots of reverb. Halfway through the pre-chorus and then into the chorus comes in my favorite sound in the whole song, and this is a Finnish Kantele. It really adds to the melancholy, aristocratic vibe, and I really like to mix in a few acoustic elements into the heavily synthesized sound. So here it is by itself. I put some saturation and EQ on it just to hone in on the frequencies I need, and then some autopan, and this autopan sounds really extreme by itself, but in the mix it works nicely to just kind of have it hanging out in the background. Sooth 2 on it for resonances, and then auto filter. I say this on a lot of my tracks. I have an auto filter for transitions. Here you can hear what I mean. It just is closing the filter as we go into the next section. Then, of course, we also have lots of reverb on this and delay. And then the chorus, it sounds like this. When I came up with that part, I was super excited. Like, that made the song for me. All right, also in the chorus, we have this percussion that kicks in. It's just 80s drum machine percussion sounds, heavily panned out to give some energy and width to the chorus. Another favorite part of the track for me is this bright keys fill. Love that sound, and here's everything in context. So I employ a lot of transitional effects in the song, standard risers, reverse cymbals, crash cymbals on the beat, tom fills, synthesizers with filters opening and closing and that sort of thing. So here's, for example, going into the chorus, here's a bunch of those things together. So the structure of this song starts out pretty typical. It's got the intro, verse, chorus. Where I would normally go to a bridge, here it just sort of goes into this coda part and stops. I felt like this is not a song that should completely resolve because it's not a situation for the narrator where things would. And so I liked the way that this ending felt. The drums drop out. We had the helicopter bass through the whole rest of the song, and here it's just straight long notes. The Kantele continues the main melody in octaves. The second time around on the coda, we add the strings. And when you put it all together, and I have to give a special shout out to my Bohemian Rhapsody ripoff here. There's a line in the lyrics about the howling winds of change, and then right after that I have this, which is very similar to what happens in Bohemian Rhapsody after the line shivers down my spine. All right, so my FX sends, you probably saw me turning them on and off as we went through looking at the different parts. But basically, I have a couple plate reverbs with different tails depending on what I want for the part. I have a delay. This is for the vocal. The delay is actually side-chained to the vocal. It lets the delay come through once the vocal stops singing. On my master chain, I probably do a few things that you're not supposed to do technically. I do like to make some small adjustments that change the sound of the overall track before I actually get it mastered. So first I have a glue compressor just to kind of glue things together. Multipine dynamics here. This one is honing in on some mid-range frequencies. Also boosting a little bit of high end. Gulfos here set at a very low ratio just to help with a little bit of masking, especially in the high end. Sooth 2 here for any problematic resonances that may be still poking through. And then at the end here, I just have a little tape saturation and a limiter to bring the levels down to where I want them and give a little bit of character to the overall sound. And that's pretty much it. Thanks everyone for watching. I hope it was interesting or useful to you. If you'd like to hear the track in full, all the usual places should have it. You can find links at bluelagoon.com. I have lots of music coming out in the future, lots of different genres, not just the synthwave stuff. So if you're interested in that, follow me on Bandcamp or on one of the other sites of your choice. I also teach music, so if you're interested in lessons in music production, piano, guitar, anything like that, get in touch. My email's on the screen. Thanks for watching.